What's up everybody, Hoang here, and today I have a deck profile for the 7 Great Demon Lords for this EX6 format. 7 Great Demon Lords is basically the evolution of the Mega Zoo style, where we had decks like Yggdrasil's Royal Knights as well as Deva, and now in the line of slamming expensive bodies to further your game state, we have Demon Lords. But unlike Devas, this is much more akin to Royal Knights, where the gimmick is you have an egg, the egg sucks up your bodies, and then eventually you go to your auto win con. But instead of Omnimon, who spits out like 5 or 6 bodies, you're going into a Gudamon who's looking to burn 7 security into lethal. And so for this list, we've been testing this into decks like Nume and Magna and whatnot, so that's been going for this. And then I've also spoken with a player from Singapore who is pretty well known in their community. His name is Brian, and he's part of the group known as Unker, I believe is how it's pronounced. And he got top 16 with Demon Lords at the most recent Singapore GAO event. So very, very good player. And so I got a couple of notes from him, and I think they'll be pretty helpful. But, without further ado, let's get started, right? So first and foremost, we have to talk about the gate. And so the gate is the primary mechanic, the gate of deadly sin. So how this works is at the start of your turn, you take your top card of your Digi-Egg deck and put it underneath the gate, so similar to Yggdrasil, and then delete all of your Digimon. If you delete any Digimon by this effect, you can take a 7 Great Demon Lord from your trash and place it underneath the gate. Now, the gate inheritable effect is... Whoops, I just accidentally removed it, but the gate's inheritable effect is whenever you would play a 7 Great Demon Lord, you can reduce the play cost by 3. And if you have 5 or more unique names underneath the gate, you can reduce it by 4 instead. And then its end of opponent's turn effect is by deleting the gate with 7 or more cards with different names, so the Demon Lords, then you can play a Gudamon from your trash without paying cost. So a couple of things about the gate that are really important is, number one, it yoinks various different eggs from your stack. So primarily you're going to be shoving in these 3 different other gates, but there's also, I don't know how you would spell this. There are also decks, not deck, but cards, if I can think about, what am I looking for? Like white's probably good enough, right? Yggdrasil, for example, right? You can actually tuck under Yggdrasil into this deck because Yggdrasil then functions as a unique name. So then not only does this ramp you faster to your Ogudo win con, but it also ramps you faster to your cost reduction win con. So there are some builds that are actually playing Yggdrasil as a tech in order to ramp your win con. The downside to this win con is, however, in the few games that you end up opening Yggdrasil as your first egg, this causes, there are pros and cons to it, right? So the pros to opening Yggdrasil egg is that your Digimon will no longer explode at the start of your turn. However, you'll still get the cost reduction, right? The cost reduction is based on the gate's inherited effect from the breeding area. So even if they're underneath Yggdrasil, you'll still be able to reduce the cost. So instead of popping your stuff, you end up just playing like Mega Zoo, essentially, right? Which is pretty cool in of itself. Being able to slam these level 6 bodies for pretty cheap, and then by doing so, you just make it so your opponent, they're going to struggle to remove the 6s, and then you can overwhelm them via that. Not only that, but that lets you sneak under a 4th gate underneath the King Drazel, so then you can reduce the cost up to 12, or if you have the additional reduction online, up to 16, right? So then all your Demon Lords actually become 0 cost. So that's really cool. The downside to Drazel, however, and that I think is really important, is number one, your Rise of the 7 Great Demon Lords is much, much harder to proc, if at all. Primarily speaking, you're proccing the Rise of the 7 Great, which is it's your equivalent of Purge. You can place a 7 Great Demon Lord from hand or trash to the bottom of your gate, and if you do, place this into your battle area. So number one, if you have Drazel, you literally can't even do this. It's actually just a vanilla card. Even if you hit this from security, it's a vanilla because it has to play it from underneath the gate. So if you flip over a Drazel egg, then all of your Rise of the 7 Greats become bricks. They're all dead cards, which is not super appealing when you realize you're playing a Mega Zoo style of deck. So consistency is kind of an issue for you to a certain extent. So that is one thing. Another thing is that Drazel prevents you from digivolving. So what this does mean is that you, for example, cannot do Lucamon into Chaos mode, for example. This means you can't go Levia X over Levia. This means you can't go Ruin mode or Agudo over, say, like Belfi, for example. So a lot of your cards that you are running suddenly become dead when you decide to run the Drazel Egg. And, you know, you could, if you want to run Drazel Egg, what that would mean is you would have to rework your entire deck, potentially, to keep that in mind. But I think for most people, instead of having to learn and potentially pivot to an entirely different playstyle on the fly, it's easier just to not run the Drazel Egg, so you don't have to think about that as much. And then going into some of our consistency cards, we do have 4 Lucamon. This Lucamon is on play as well as start of main. Reveal top 3, add 1 Angel, Archangel, or 3 Great Angel, or 7 Great Demon Lord, trash the rest. And then end of your turn, by placing one of your level 6 Digimon on top of your security, evolve into Chaos mode from trash without paying cost. Also, if you would play this card, if you don't have a level 5 or lower, reduce the play cost by 5. So turn 1, it's a 5 cost hard slam to filter your deck. And then starting your main phase, if they don't remove the Lucamon, then you can resolve Lucamon effect to search an additional time prior to resolving the Gate of Deadly Sins effect, because they're both started main phase, so as player priority, you get to choose. So you can resolve 2 procs of Lucamon prior to the Gate destroying Lucamon and then filling your trash. This means you can fill your trash with up to 6 cards, or likely 4 cards, if you assuming you don't completely whiff. And so you have 4 different cards you potentially can yoink into the Gate. So that's really good. Its ability to evolve into Chaos mode is also very significant, because this is what we call a Chaos mode loop, because essentially you trap your opponent to like an infinite Tsukiyomi, where like you just constantly heal or force them into like a really terrible choice with Chaos mode. Because Lucamon effect heal like by sending one of your 7 Great Demon Lords, and then this will also trigger their effect to also stack the gate, so you're accelerating your gate by 1. And then when you evolve into Chaos mode has the ability to also heal and burn your opponent if they decide not to pop anything. So eventually you get to the point where your opponent just no longer is able to break through this Chaos mode loop, and then you can just grind them out until eventually Oguromon is ending the game, right? And for context, Chaos mode, we're just going to skip right to it, is on play when Digivolving, so it works for both ways. Your opponent may delete one of their Digimon or Tamers. If they don't, trash the top of their security and heal 1. When this Digimon would leave the battle area by returning 1 Lucamon from your source or from your trash to the bottom of your deck, you may play 1 Satan mode, which we don't have, so it doesn't matter, or 1 level 6 7 Great Demon Lord from your trash. So this means if the Lucamon were to be removed by Gate effect, for example, you can then spawn out one of your other 7 Great Demon Lords without cost. This has not consumed your Gate's reduction yet, and then you can play a second 7 Great Demon Lord. This means you can use powerful tools like Leviamon, Creepymon, even Belphamon Sleep Mode to toolbox your opponent. We also play 2 Blancs. Blanc is 3 costs, trash 1, draw 2. This is just additional consistency. You'll notice that your early game, if you don't see the Lucamon or you don't see some of your cheaper low-end pieces, you tend to slam for pretty expensive, and that can be an issue to decks like Numemon or decks like Armors, where you just give them too much liberty. So having Blanc as a card not only allows you to accelerate your consistency, because you're digging an extra 2 cards. It's a body that Gate can pop, which then allows you to stack another Demon Lord, and then use selective discard. So you can purposely set up your trash to then have Gate suck it up. So in certain matchups where they can't punish the Blanc, it's basically a turn 1, draw 2, set up trash to guarantee a Gate proc. So Blanc is pretty good. Next we do play the 2 Porcupamon. This is on play as well as on deletion, pop at level 3. Why this is important is because Chikurimon. Chikurimon is a really problematic floodgate in the format for this deck, because Chikurimon prevents you from reducing cost. So Porcupa is really important because on play, you would pop the Chikuri, and they attempt to play another Chikuri, then the Gate would pop Porcupa, which would then pop the Chikuri again, prior to you having to actually play any of your Demon Lords via cost reduction. There is an argument where you can play 3 Porcupa if you're really afraid of Demon Lords, or you're really afraid of Chikuri. I've also seen builds where they're running on 0 or 1. I think 2 is a really safe middle ground number. Obviously, you can alter this based on your local scene, but I think Chikurimon, as well as cards like Solarmon, for example, are going to see an increase in play, especially Chikuri, because of Numemon. So having these Porcupas is really good. And while it is not a searchable target by Lucamon, you have cards like Blanc, you have cards like Mist, as well as Rival's Barrage to help the consistency in trying to fetch it. Going ahead a little bit, we're going to go into Leviamon. Leviamon, as you know, on play when Digivolving, if your opponent has as many or more Digimon and Tamers as you do, delete their highest Digimon and then delete their lowest level. And then all turns when a Digimon is deleted, when an opponent's Digimon is deleted, gain 1 memory. So you're not likely never actually resolving the sec +1. You're not swinging out because it's going to have summoning sickness. More than anything, you're realistically using this to just pop 2 bodies as well as gain additional memory to try and threaten your opponent. It's also something that you can use to bridge into Levia X. So if you have Levia on board and they're trying to clear out your Levia, oftentimes they'll have to proc the Levia X, so then in tangent the two go together really well. Levia X is when an effect plays an opponent's Digimon or Tamer, one of your Levia can evolve into this from your trash. And then when you evolve into this, if your opponent has as many or more total Digimon and Tamers, you could pop one of their Tamers, then delete an opponent's level 3, a level 5, and a level 7. So all odd numbers, right? So these are also different names. They're unique names, so they also count towards the gate individually, which is really great. And then the other Levia, I think this Levia is actually very, very good. I know a lot of people play this at 1, but I think this is probably one of the stronger Demon Lords in the EX6 format, specifically because it does exceptionally well into Numemon. When an opponent's Digimon or one of your Digimon with 7 Great is played by trashing 1 card from your hand, strip the bottom 3 sources of one of their Digimon to the bottom of their deck. Then, if your opponent has as many or fewer total Digimon and Tamers as you, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with no sources. So what this means is if they have, like, for example, a Monzai X stack, and then your Monzai X is... if you have a Monzai X stack, or they have a Monzai X stack and they have Nume X, then you can go into this Levia, strip the Nume X, and then pop the Monzai X, so you deny them the float. And because this is all turns, what you can actually end up doing is whenever they would go for... like a Monzai X play out a body, this will then trigger the Levia, so then you can chomp the Monzai X during their turn. So this is actually a very versatile card, and this is the first card that we're going over that actually has the ability, when this card would leave the battle area, other than by battle, place a 7 Great Demon Lord from your trash to the bottom of your gate. So when the gate pops Levia and many of the other Demon Lords alike, you actually ramp 2. So mind you do have to ramp to 7 for your Ragudo win con, so ramping 2 per turn is pretty reasonable. Now, in order to have this condition, which is if your opponent has as many or fewer total Digimon and Tamer as you, you can run additional Tamers to try and like help with that condition, right? You want to have more Digimon/Tamers than your opponent, and so as a 7 Great Demon Lord deck, sometimes it's a little bit hard depending on like what they're playing. So you can run, for example, where is it? Oh yes, because I have white on, right? You could run Mako. Mako is a consistency piece that also has synergy with Lucemon by giving you back a memory. It fills your trash. It selectively grabs any purple, as well as being a tamer towards the Levia count. Which I think is pretty great. And with the Levia, that also means you can play Biting Crush. 4 Levia is a pretty solid amount. There are some builds where they do play 5 in order to have more consistency with the Biting Crush. The Biting Crush is trashing 1 card, pop a 6 or lower, and you trash a 7 Great Demon Lord, which, I mean, basically everything's a 7 Great Demon Lord. Then you can delay, where if they summon a Digimon by an effect, you can just summon Levia. So just a lot of really great inherent synergy. This will trigger against decks like Monzai, for example. This will trigger if your opponent summons their own Agudomon, because then you can just chomp it up with the Levia. There are decks like Tyrant Kabuterimon, for example, where they will end up spawning a body, and then you can pop with Biting. Not the Tyrant, right, but like whatever they summon. And that can just like reduce the amount of plays that they have. And there are plenty of other decks like Phoenixmon, for example, and whatnot. Going into our next 7 Great Demon Lords, we do have Creepymon. This is a blocker, so this is probably one of your best defensive tools, but also on play in Wind Digivolving, but the Wind Digivolving really doesn't matter. Delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest DP, and for each level that Digimon had, trash the top of your deck. And then it has the ability to stack a card underneath the gate when it would leave the field other than bad. So this card and Beelzebub are your primary trash ramp tools. This pops a body, and then if you pop a 4, you mill 4, and it's also your blocker. So this is just really great for staving off damage. And then speaking of your other ramp tools, we do have Beelzebub. Beelzebub is Rush on play when Digivolving, Trash top 4, and then if you have 10 or more in Trash, De-Digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon up to 2. And then the effect when this would leave other than battle, stack a card. So Creepy plus BLs are how you're filling your trash rapidly. Both will end up triggering Rival's Barrage, so which is pretty great. Creepy will pop a Digimon, BLs Digivolves into Rush. So the Rush is really great because if they have anything tapped out, you can swing into it, and then Digivolve lets you deal with really annoying cards like Venusmon, for example, or maybe a Ruin mode that's threatening to go off on the following turn. Whatever the threat may be, Digivolve 2 is really powerful. We play a 1 of Barbramon. This really is just for the fact that like it's an extra 7 Great Demon Lord name. To be honest, the effect is kind of nifty. Basically, you snipe a card from your opponent's hand, and then you can play a purple Digimon, or a purple card rather. So Barbramon, you could play, for example, you could play Porcupa. There are some people that play Raremon actually in order to play it off of the Barbramon, because Blanc and Raremon are essentially the same thing, but this is a 3 cost and Raremon's a 4 cost. But Barbara is able to play the Raremon. Barbramon can also play the Mako as well, which is pretty cute actually. So primarily it's just for a different name, but if you need some things to revive, those are valid targets. Belphegor, as you know, on play, take a rage mode from your trash, put it underneath this, and then this Digimon is unaffected by all of your opponent's effects. And then opponent's turn, when they would attack, trash 2 and negate the attack. So this is really fantastic into matchups like Magnamon, for example, where they need to reproc, security needs to get burned for them to reproc the protection. By having sleep mode just outright negate the attack, this means that they're not getting their reproc. It's not like a blocker either, so where you were losing the sleep mode on this. And then, yeah, immunity is just really great in general because it means that you're guaranteed to get a gate proc off. So overall, just really, really great stuff there. What this also means, though, is, for example, when you... if you have the sleep mode and you go into the rage mode and then the gate pops the rage mode, the rage mode will then stack a card and sleep mode will go to trash, and then you can trigger Rise of the 7 Greats. So after you put the sleep mode into your source via like one of your many effects, right? So whether or not it's the rage, no, not the rage, right? Because that has to do it prior. But like gate, for example, gate will resolve and put sleep into your stack, and then Rise of the 7 Great can activate and then fetch back out the sleep mode, and then re-add the rage mode from your trash if you still have it, which is really easy to set up actually. And then you have another return of immunity plus attack negate. So it's really great. In this rage mode, on play, you may trash up to 3 cards from your hand. For each card trashed, suspend one of their level 5 or lower, then delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost suspended. So really good into aggro style of decks where they're like a lot of 3 costs or 4 costs, and you can just pop them all out. And then we play 1 of Lilith. Lilith is here as a unique name. It has the ability on play until the end of your opponent's turn. One of your opponent's Digimon gains end of your turn, delete this Digimon. And then when this Digimon would leave the battle area, other than the battle, you can delete a level 5 or lower on either player's side to prevent its leaving. And then when another Digimon is deleted during your opponent's turn, trash the top of your opponent's security stack. So there are some builds that are playing Lilith at 2, and there are some builds that are even playing it at 4. For me personally, Lilith and Barbara, neither of them have the ability to stack something under gate, so they're pretty slow to go into. Lilithmon, the burn is whatever, given the fact that your Wincon is Ogudo, who's going to burn 7 on average anyway. So the burn's whatever. The protection's kind of neat, because then you can pop a 5 or lower when the gate attempts to pop the Lilith, which is pretty cool. That's a pretty nice utility that it has. And the ability to tell one of your opponent's stacks to essentially go pound sand, or go play in some flood water, or go kick rocks with open-toed shoes, is pretty nifty. But overall, Lilith is fine, I think, as a unique name especially. And then we do have the Ogudomon. So the Ogudomon is when Digivolving, as well as when attacking, you may place up to 7 Great Demon Lord cards from... okay. Play up to 7 cards with different names and the 7 Great Demon Lords trait from your trash at the bottom of this card's sources. If you place 4 or more with this effect, delete one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers. When attacking, by returning 7 cards with different names and 7 Great Demon Lord traits from this card's source, delete 7 of their Digimon or Tamers. Then, trash up the top 7 cards of your opponent's security stack. For each card deleted by this effect, reduce the card's trash by 1. So, first and foremost, the primary way to get this out is gate, right? Gate at the end of your opponent's turn, delete it with 7 or more names, and then you can play a Gudamon, okay? A Gudamon will, on your turn, doesn't have summoning sickness because it was played at the end of your opponent's turn, so no summoning sickness. You can swing, take all of the cards that were previously under the gate and are now in trash, put it underneath the Agudo, pop 1, and then Agudo effect, pop 7, and then burn for everything you didn't pop. And so into most things, you've probably wiped the board at this point, and then Agudomon's just going to end the game. So really strong win con. You can set it up to where you have a sleep mode, play this for reduced cost, give it immunity, evolve into a Gudamon, and then from there, if you want, you can like end of your opponent's turn, you can play out a second Gudamon using the gate effect from there. So there's like some really cool like utility you can do with Agudo because this is when digivolving as well as when attacking. So keep that in mind. We also play Ruin Mode. Ruin Mode is really, really strong because, I mean, you're playing your 6s for, like, reduced cost, right? And then you can just slam Ruin Mode on top of that. So into decks like Nume or decks like Patamon or Vmon even, you just deny them move out, you deny them floating, whatever it may be. So you go to Ruin Mode, -5, they can't play the game. And then at the start of your turn, gate, pop Ruin Mode, reapply the -5. So overall, just a really strong card. This is also really good into Imperial, for example, because it prevents them from partitioning. It prevents them from using dual tamers. We play 3 Emperor. Emperor is really good because your hardest matchup is like Magnamon as well as Nume. And both those matchups are hurt by the Emperor, and Nume especially, right? Turn 1 Emperor, turn 2 Emperor slows them down significantly. So that way you can get into your Agudo win con much, much easier. And in general, Emperor is just a really strong card this format. I've seen builds play 4 of this. I think 3 is probably fine. In addition, it's also giving you additional draw power whenever you pop a Digimon, so this is also helping you filter. And it's a tamer for your Levia condition. 2 Biting Crush, like I said, you could play 3. There's definitely builds I've seen play 3. There are builds I've seen play 4. I think 2 is like the minimum, though. 3 Rivals of Barrage. Your BLs, your Creepy, as well as your Mist, like I said, all proc Rivals, which then gives you access to a great toolbox. It's also a security bomb, which can deal with really annoying threats. We play 1 7th Lightning. 7th Lightning is a 7 Great Demon Lord, so this can be stacked underneath the gate and count towards that condition. When you evolve into your Levia X, you can play this from your trash for free, pop a 4 and pop a 6, and then main effect, pop a 4, pop a 6. So this is just, A, it's an additional name, B, it's an additional way to remove things. Rise of the 7 Great, this is a mandatory 4 of, you have to play this at 4, and then Mist. So with Mist, this is trash 2, draw 1, and then delay, gain 2. This is pretty great in the early game. It's filling your trash, it helps you increase your consistency. You could very well just cut this for Mako. You could also cut the Sistermon for Mako. I think either or is fine. There's a lot of cards that are pretty great text that you can run. But I think overall, this is like a really solid core for 7 Great Demon Lords. The deck is super flexible because you have access to like such a wide array of purple cards. I think really the sky is the limit here. I think Mako is a really great addition if you want to have additional consistency for the Levia as well as a Barberamon target, right? So do keep that in mind if you want. But there's like a ton of different ways you can go about it. So that overall covers the deck build. I have a couple of notes from Brian as well. Number 1, your hard matchups, Magnamon, being immune to everything basically means you just can't interact with it, as well as having Armor Purge, which means it's a lot harder to remove bodies. Reasons for that, you're relying on cards like Belphamon, for example. You could run cards like Maycrack into Venusmon or Pause plugin as well, if you want additional ways to deal with... If you want additional ways to deal with the Magnamon, you can go Venusmon over Lucamon as well. And then Nume, Domini, and Red Hybrid are also really annoying matchups as well. And Imperial if they go fast enough. If you want to deal with the Mirror, denying their Agudamon win con is really important. So whether it's via Biting Crush, Rise of the Seven Great to spawn into a 6 that pops their Agudo, both of these are really great answers to dealing with it. Lucemon Chaos Mode, if they would remove this, then it lets you go into another 7 Great, so this also gives you a tool to pop their Agudo. And really leveraging the fact that your Sleep Mode has immunity to try and grind them out to get to your gate. And then he also stated that he's experimenting with Lilithmon in the mirror to where you can set it up to where your opponent would pop their Digimon during gate effect and you would trash their security, so then you can look for Beelzemon Rush to try and win out the game. When Brian got top 16 at Gao is a BT17 effect, but he said his list, which can be found on his Twitter, will work for EX6, and I'll be sure to link his Twitter in the description down below. And I asked him, is Beelzemon X worth it? And he said it's mostly for as a win more, and that Agudo is a sufficient win con. So yeah, so that is the 7 Great Demon Lords deck profile. Of course, like I said, you could run various different cards as your tech if you want to fit it in. Like for example, like I said, you can cut Blanc and run in the Mako, which it would be fine. You can also, which I think I'm like leaning to, like as I'm doing this deck profile, I'm like low-key leaning towards that, just so like we have a better like Levia win con here. Yes, that's a little like counterintuitive, like this Levia, but like you can manage your own resources fine. Either way, right? You can make those decisions yourself. But yeah, so this is the deck profile. Thank you all so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. I think this deck has a lot of room for exploration. This is the deck with the most results back in EX6 Japan. And while they do really like the deck, I think the deck is still pretty solid. I think it's strong. And so there's a lot of innovation to be had, especially when you have so many different top ends you can potentially run. Like I've seen people run Zwart Defeat, for example, because you pop the defeat with the gate and then that will proc defeats on deletion effect to pop another body. Like we said, the Beelzemon X is an angle that you can go for. BT7 Lucemon is another angle, and yeah. So thanks for watching and peace out.